Okay, welcome. Sorry we're running a little bit late and behind time, but welcome to our final technical meeting for the year, which is tonight being a presentation on the Sydney Metro, an update from Tim Parker, who is the Executive Director of Projects for the Sydney Metro Group. Just an agenda for tonight, we'll run through a quick safety briefing. There is a small number of people here at the centre, and as well as the people who are being live streaming. I'll go through some apologies. I'll give you a quick wrap up from a president's point of view, an update on our membership, some upcoming events and our technical meetings as well before I hand over to Tim. Just from a safety point of view for the people in the office here, emergency procedures as usual, the alarms are the normal alarm system. If there is any fire, it would be a fire because there's no scheduled events this afternoon. Assembly area is outside on Liverpool Street near Castlereagh Street. So you just make your way out through the front door and across the road to the corner of Liverpool and Castlereagh. So welcome, Mark Harris is my name. I'm the President of the New South Wales branch of the Permanent Way. I'd also like to acknowledge the technical subcommittee for the PWI, Prath Nanthakumaran, who's a Senior Project Manager with Sydney Metro. We've also got Ray Civillano, who is the Technical Director and Project Lead for Oricon, and Elaine Human, who is also an Executive Quantity Surveyor for MBM. So thanks to those guys who do a lot of work behind the scenes in running these meetings. Apologies, got a few apologies. Howard Collins was apologies. I'm not sure if anyone else has got it from the floor. No, I'll just move on. We do have a number of new corporate members, which I would like to acknowledge. So Willow Rail has joined us as a corporate member. So it's Treselect Australia, International Lighting and Dematia Transport, new corporate members of the PWI. So I'd like to welcome them. Thank you. Technical meeting. Our last technical meeting was back in August. It was a joint meeting with our AGM and was sponsored by WSP. It's really around the technical engineering in practice, and they used a number of live examples of some depots that they're building at the moment, particularly around clash detection and a way of actually building it once, or designing it once, building it in the office and then building it in the field. So just really showing that how this technology has moved along in the last 5 or 6 years, particularly, and now commonplace in construction across the world. So again, thanks to WSP for their support at that technical meeting. We just had the convention. The theme for that was bursting the bubble. Would like to thank Steve Namoski and his team for all the hard work they did putting together that convention, a virtual convention. As you can see, for the people who did come into the live stream, it was really like being on a TV set. Excellent setup. The people from the Museum of Contemporary Art did a fantastic job of running that event for us, and that was a great success, I think. For those who did join in, we saw a guy called Gary Denman from Google, who was our keynote speaker. Really challenged the way we think, particularly for a company like Google at one end of the spectrum to probably railways on the other. And I only say that because Google, you made a comment about the fact that don't come to me with an idea that's twice as good as the idea that you've got now or the system that we've got now. Called it 10x thinking. Come to me with an idea that's 10 times better than the product we've got now, and then we'll look at it. So I thought that was fabulous. And he went on to give us a whole lot of really exciting examples of what companies like Google do. They look at ideas, they map out a process, and in some cases the technology isn't there to get to that outcome, or we're not ready for that particular piece of technology. So they've got them all sort of stacked away on the side, ready to load them up at a later date. So it was probably one of the best keynote presentations we've had. We also had some excellent speakers. Anna, who came in from Germany. We also had Jacqueline, who gave us a great presentation on innovation. Jared from Willow Rail, who again, as I said, is one of our new corporate members. A great presentation on what they're doing in the Pilbara. And we also had another presentation completely left field to what PWI is doing with TradieBot. talking about artificial intelligence and different ways of moving forward. We did have a few awards on the evening, and the first one was the Ken Erickson Award, which we did run through, and congratulations to both John Holland with the CRN for winning the Ken Erickson Award, and for highly commended for Sydney Trains for also doing that. And also the fact that this is probably one of the better presentations of awards, by actually having a number of the key speakers actually sit down and have a if you like, a lounge discussion with the chair. So that went really well, and some great feedback for that. So I'd also like to thank some of our platinum members, particularly CPB and John Holland, who it's their turn this year to chair a number of the sessions. So we had Julian Sharp and we had Steve Butcher there doing that. Also, I'd like to thank Caroline Wilkie, who joined me for a session virtually talking about the ARA and what they're doing and moving forward. Caroline only been in the job for 6 months, so certainly a challenging time for her, but the ARA are doing some great things. So for all of our membership, we should be keying into what the ARA is doing. I said a highly successful convention and quite a significant amount of global reach. We had people from North America, all across Australia, some in the UK, and in, I think, Singapore was the other one. So it virtually tells us that in the future, our conventions or our technical meetings will have face-to-face meetings as we move forward, but we'll also have live streaming events as well. Just a little bit of housekeeping around what our next lot of events are. We have a social day coming up, provided COVID continues to sort of stay under control. The 5th of March at Bankstown Golf Course. Again, a great social event, so Wade Perham is organising that. As I said before, the presentation of the awards, which normally happens at our convention, we delayed this year. And we're running an awards night, which will be on the 12th of February. So hold that date in your diary. It'll be the first networking event. Hopefully by February, we've got the opportunity to get a lot of people together. Again, the executive breakfast that we planned at the beginning of this year, back in, I think it was March, that had to be postponed. So it is now set up for the 12th of May, 2021. Hopefully we'll have Howard Collins along to that, as was planned earlier in the year. Also proud to announce that John Hollands have taken up the sponsorship for our winter dinner, which is our big social event in the middle of the year. So thank you to Steve and his team for that. From a membership update, opportunity for everyone to get their memberships up to date. We've got a number of corporate members who we're chasing that aren't financial at the moment. So if that's one of you guys, can you quickly get those up to date for us? We've got 4 platinums, which is full. We've got 2 spares in the golds and 2 spares in the silvers for anyone who's interested in the enhanced corporate membership. Pretty healthy personal membership, but again, we've got a lot of people who need to get online and get their annual fees up to date. And 21 life members. As far as our technical meetings, today, as I said, Sydney Metro is providing their presentation today, but we do have space for all of the events up into next year. Cadet program, I've talked a few times about this, so we've moved quite a distance in the last few months getting that under control. So Stuart Sutherland, who runs the cadet program for the PWI, for those who don't know, we're putting on 3 cadets this year, and we'll pay each of them $10,000 per annum towards their degrees. We've had a lot of interest, 35 people registering interest. At least half of those have put in formal applications. We've also gone through a process where we're getting mentors from the industry who will work with those cadets that we put on. So we expect to announce the successful applicants in around early December for the program ready to start in February. So that's, I think, a great initiative of the PWI. I'd like to thank our enhanced platinum members So Coleman Rail, Asiana Company, has taken over from Lendlease Engineering, John Hollins, Lang O'Rourke and CPB, and our gold members, Alltrack, Progress Rail, Brimble Rail, MP Rail, Quickway and Pandrol, and we've got 14 silver enhanced corporate members. Just also a reminder that look at our social media platforms, so Instagram and LinkedIn. All of our events are being information provided on those platforms. I suppose that gives me great pleasure now to introduce our keynote speaker for today. So Tim Parker, for those of you who don't know Tim, he's Executive Director for Projects for the Sydney Metro. He's got a strong commercial and technical experience in the development of a number of major infrastructure projects, going from over 25 years of experience in leading and developing project teams across a number of projects across the world. As I said, Tim is currently the Executive Director for Projects for Sydney Metro. In his role, he's accountable for the projects currently being delivered and for the development of those projects as they transition into the delivery stage. That portfolio includes the Metro Northwest, the Sydney Metro City and Southwest, and the Sydney Metro West and the Sydney Metro Greater West. That's a fair bit, Tim. The projects division is responsible for building and maintaining the Sydney Metro engineering, design and delivery capability across those integrated projects. In Tim's earlier career, he focused on engineering, design and management before he moved into senior roles and has taken over an overall leadership responsibility on projects including road tunnels, railway lines, airports and Hong Kongs. These included the Eastern Harbour Crossing in Hong Kong, the Hong Kong International Airport, the Sydney Harbour Tunnel, Epping to Chatswood line, and of course the Sydney Metro and Southwest. His specialist skills are in the area of public-private partnership delivery, and in recent years has taken on the project directorship roles for the procurement of several major of the PPPs, including the new Convention and Exhibition Centre in Sydney, which you all believe is an outstanding success there in Darling Harbour, the North Connects motorway link, and in these roles he's developed and delivered innovative purpose-built procurement strategies that meet the challenging issues for all these major projects. So would you welcome with me in joining Tim to the stand? Thank you.
What a pleasure. I mean that, gosh, to be here talking to real people. I heard a great quote. I said to someone the other day, I said, let's catch up for coffee. He goes, that's brilliant. Gives me a chance, gives me an excuse to put my trousers on. And I thought, what a strange world we live in now. But look, it's a genuine pleasure to be here. I can't remember. I have done one of these before, but I think I was a little bit younger. So it's a little while ago. So tonight, we're just going to talk you through a little bit about the City and Southwest. Hopefully, I know that you guys want to be entertained, so hopefully it'll give you some interesting things to do. Happy to get questions at the end. A little bit of talk about what is Sydney Metro. So this is the map. The Northwest, which runs from Tallawong through to Chatswood, that was completed in 2019. In our first year, we had approximately 22 million passengers. We're currently hitting 99.9% reliability and availability. A very, very successful railway. Yes, you've all read the press, it's had its moments, but that's the benefit of having a new railway. And I look at some of the international projects, it's a really is a success story for Sydney, finishing it on time and getting it up and running. I'm not going to mention the other international projects, but Rob and I talked about something in London recently. But we'll move on. The next phase is Chatswood through to Bankstown, which is the City and Southwest. Now, this project is the extension to the Northwest, underground from Chatswood through to Sydenham, and then we come above the ground, and then we're converting the Bankstown line. Where we are on that is we're midway through delivery, and that's really some of the photographs I'll be showing you tonight and some of the little stories. Our other projects include Metro West. So Metro West is a new line, about 25 kilometre underground line from Westmead through to the CBD North. looking at a travel time from Parramatta to the city of around 20 minutes. Again, that's been announced, it's funded, and procurement is starting. Last but not least is our Metro Western Sydney Airport line. I like to call it stage one, because I always think it's a good way of encouraging the politicians to add stages, but stage one will go from St Mary's through to Aerotropolis, about 23 kilometres. There is quite a lot of underground railway out there as well. There's about 9 kilometres of underground, and the rest is surface, and we've got some viaduct and those type of things. So they're the projects. Very, very exciting. Portfolio of circa 40 billion. So it's big money. It's Australia's biggest public transport project, and it's one of the world's largest railway projects. So when we talk about the Sydney Metro experience, I'm talking to railway people, so I'm not going to labour on this slide, but I think it is important to understand that we're there not to replace Sydney trains, we're there to complement it. And that's what this is about. This is recognising that we've actually got to build our systems up. And what we're looking at, we have the opportunity, because we're doing mainly greenfield, we can actually get rid of the gap. We can do a turn up and go service. It's all about connectivity. Us working with our buses, Sydney trains, we can connect people, new communities. It's been remarkable, the stories you hear from the Northwest. People who have not been able to travel before can suddenly travel. And I had a recent experience where I was at a specialist appointment, and this guy arrived and he was really excited. He'd got to his appointment 45 minutes early because he travelled on the Northwest Metro. And he was so excited, it's wonderful. What was more embarrassing is that my wife told him that I'd worked on it, and then this guy is a Singaporean, and he said, "Can I have a selfie?" So somewhere I'm on something. Of course, the turn up and go, really, really important, and that's where we're going to go. It's going to be, how can we make sure people just turn up and go? And of course, the connectivity, making sure that when we design these stations, we think about everything else. This is the City and South West line in a bit more detail. We've got new underground stations at Crow's Nest, Victoria Cross. Victoria Cross, for those that are a bit confused, that is North Sydney for us normal people. And for those people that perhaps you guys might know, opposite the Rag and Famish, can't miss it. There you go. Useful thing to know. Barangaroo, Martin Place, Pitt Street, Central, Waterloo, out at Sydenham, and then of course we've got all the Bankstown lines. This is the delivery strategy. So each one of these boxes represents a separate contract. It didn't start this complex, it grew a bit. And in fact, we've taken a few boxes off because we're getting a bit confused. We've got multiple contracts on this, and this is simply because of the size. So one of the big challenges we have is we have every contractor in town working for us. And I've got to say, at the moment, the contractors are doing fantastically. They're doing really well. But most of these contracts are now awarded, and some of them are actually coming towards the end. So if you take something like the tunnelling contract, they've got a few more months, but they've actually done a great job for us. So what I'm going to do now is talk a little bit about City and South West. I'll start with line-wide. I know there's people in the room that know a little bit about line-wide, so I'm hoping they're not going to correct me if I get it all wrong. Look, line-wide, what I describe is, I'm a mechanical engineer, so what I describe this to my civil colleagues is, thank you for building the sewer. We are now going to convert it into a railway. So line-wide is very much part of the conversion. They actually turn the fantastic civil works into a railway. And what they're doing is they're doing all the tunnel ventilation. They're doing all the things in the track. They're doing the track. They're doing the walkways. They're doing the hydrants, the mechanical ventilation. So they are very important. And so as a contractor, they're working across every contract. And they've also got TSON, which is the train systems and operations, that are also across them. So this is one of the most important contracts. And I'll come back a little bit to what they're doing later. So what I've designed today is it's like the virtual tour. We've done a lot of virtual stuff. So I'm going to pretend that you're walking around and that we've got a big bus and I'm taking you around each of our sites. So what we'll do is we'll start at Tallawong. We already had a stabling facility for the existing trains, but obviously for the City and South West, we're buying new trains. We're buying 23 new trains. And what we're doing here is actually building the stabling facility. So we started in November, as you can see. October of this year, we're basically fairly close to completion. So we've got all the hardware, and we've got the track in, we've got the overhead in, and we're now overlaying the signalling. So again, that's ready and waiting for the new trains to arrive. So we've got 13 stabling roads, and also from our point of view, we've also got the ability for TSOM to come in a few weeks early. So that will help them build that and be successful. We moved down to Northern Connections. I live near Chatswood. Doesn't it look good at night? A bit of Manhattan, really. Great photograph. What we're doing here, don't ever quote me as saying Chatswood looks like Manhattan. I'll get into all sorts of trouble. What we're doing here is the North Shore. So what we're trying to do is that the new tunnel actually goes down sort of in the middle of the track and hangs a right to go underground. That used to be the old Osgrid. So what we've had to do is we've basically slewed the two North Shore across to one side, and that's where we're actually doing new embankment work. Where we started was Laing O'Rourke did some great work, getting all the enabling work through there, and now Limewide will take over. But when we're finished, we'll have basically a small bridge that will take the down North Shore over our tracks, and then we'll cut in and go underground at that point. So again, the team have done some fantastic work there, lots and lots of possessions, and really have been very successful in doing that with minimum impact to customers. So this is the Chatswood dive site. Again, I'm sorry to reference every site to a pub, but it happens to be opposite to the Great Northern. And for historians amongst us, it was originally going to be the location of Chatswood Station. But a landowner wanted it moved further up the line. So there you go. So the Great Northern used to be sort of, they thought that was going to be the centre. And then some property developer decided to push the station up to where it is now. So yeah, a little story. So what we have here is at the dive site. So this is where we come into the tracks come off the North Shore, duck down and enter underground. We've also got track access there, so we can come in down a road. That little road there, we're going to be using that, really valuable for fitting out the tunnel, but also in the future for bringing high rail in to the tunnel. Above the entrance is our first service building. So for those that are familiar with underground railways, ventilation, power at regular points. So this is the first service facility that's being built above that portal. Crow's Nest. This is, again, a bit of dated history when we had the TBM in there. Where we are at the Crow's Nest now, the box has been complete. Also, we've recently awarded our first our station contract for that package. So that station package went to AW Edwards, and they start work on that in the coming month or so. What we've also done is, because we finished the tunnelling a little bit early there, we were able to get Limewide in. So Limewide have been using that hole, for want of a better word, or that excavation, to actually weld rail together and push it down the tunnel. So again, we've got an early access to get our rail in the tunnel, which I'll come back to. So again, this is the TBM that came through, one of the first breakthroughs. The box is complete, the tunnels are complete, and we're moving on now from tunnelling back into station fit out and Limewide. Our next station is Victoria Cross. You may think that looks like an enormous cavern. It is an enormous cavern. So you just get an idea of the height. So it's a twin cavern. There will be a mezzanine in there to bring passengers down. On the left-hand side, I didn't get a video of it, but the three there, they're basically digging out quite a large excavation. And basically the machinery over there is basically passing dirt from one to another to another. And then there's a vertical lift crane that takes it out. It's really quite remarkable work, how well they're doing there. But again, this is going to be quite an unusual station. At the, I call it the rag and famish end, it has a very traditional entrance. But we also, at the other end, we have lifts. So we have 4 lifts serving the station. So if you have kids that you go to any of the myriad of schools around there, including Monty and St Mary's, they have their own personal lift in the morning. What I want to do is have the retailer adjacent to that lift, because I think it's going to get very busy. But again, this will be a fantastic station when it's finished. Again, this is one of the stations that has an integrated station development above it. So the contractor for this one is Lend Lease. They're responsible for doing the station and also the development above it. Barangaroo. Barangaroo is, I can only describe this station as tricky. That's what we'll say, because it's a good engineering term, tricky. Basically, this was built in under the road. It is also built below sea level, because we've got the sea there. So adventures at Barangaroo include finding Australia's oldest boat. As construction people, you'll understand, we found the boat, and it was really interesting. If the boat was made of native Australian wood, it was going to be the oldest boat ever found in Australia. If it was made out of English oak, it was going in a tip. So, and it was interesting where people wanted it to go. It turned out to be a really important piece of heritage, and it was an Australian boat. We worked around it. The amount of steel that's going into this station, and it's very interesting because it's so close and it's under the sea level. Not only do you have to build it to stop the water coming in, so we've got 2 or 3 levels of tanking, we've also had to anchor it down to stop it popping up. So it's been a really interesting design. And also, you'll see there, the red steel, that's actually where we're keeping the road in place. Hickson Road has stayed in place throughout the whole construction. So again, a really interesting piece of work. Moving into Martin Place. Now, I've got a few photographs of Martin Place. If you ever see a press conference, generally that's where the Premier is, because it's right next door. So a lot of people have gone to Martin Place. Without doubt, one of the trickiest stations, right in the heart of the city, incredibly close to the existing eastern suburbs line. For one of the buildings there, the pile was about 1.5 meters away from the eastern suburbs line. Very, very tricky. And to actually access from the Martin Place station to our station, we put an adit in between the 2 running tunnels. The other interesting thing we found out was that, for those that know, again, their history, the eastern suburbs line was not built in one go. It actually started in the 30s, they resumed it in the 50s, they finished it in the 70s. So when we were looking at concrete strengths and things, we're testing the concrete, and we had a 1930s version, a 1950s, and a 1970s. So very, very interesting. So again, this station, it will provide a connection to the existing Martin Place. It'll also be integral to a development, which I'll show you. I put this photograph up. The one on the left, this shows the adit that runs under Macquarie Bank. So it's the Commonwealth Bank building, but Macquarie Bank own it. That from the top of the tunnel to the bank is slightly less than 3 meters, and about 2 meters from the foundations. I think the word tricky comes into mind again, but they've done it, it's there now. And if you get the angle right, you get a great photograph looking up to see centre point. So that will be a future connection. Again, the southern concourse here is where we've been digging this out. Again, the excavation's complete. It will be a magnificent station. It came through an unsolicited proposal by Macquarie. So what that means is that Macquarie came to government and said, have we got the deal for you? We'd like to invest in the station. So, and in return, they're building 2 fairly ginormous office developments. One on the north, which is this curved building here. That will be their new global headquarters. And then there's another commercial building on the south. Again, this makes this station very, very special. They took our design and said, that's interesting. And they really did make a fantastic outcome. And it's one of the first integrated stations that have been developed in the world. We obviously followed it for our other stations, but should be a remarkable result when it's finished. This just gives you a little bit of a section through that shows we've basically got both a connection for the station, but also an unpaid connection that's being built. As part of the North Tower, they're looking at bringing light right the way down to the basement into the station. So again, when it's finished, it really will be quite a stunning station. Pitt Street. Pitt Street, this is we call it Binocular Station. So for those people that use Epping Station, very similar. We have 2 tubes with a series of adits going across. That's one of the tubes on the right hand. All the linings have been finished now. The north shaft is one of the shafts that's been finished, and out of that will again come out a station and a development building built together in a single development. Central Station. I think when we launched Central Station, they said, I think the minister's thing was something like keyhole surgery at Central. Has he ever been to Central? I mean, there is so much stuff at Central, and we found most of it. So the idea here is we took out platforms 13, 14 and 15 and created some space. We then found, I think it was circa 400 graves. That took a little bit of doing. But we worked our way through. So I have to say, the cooperation between our contractors, Lang O'Rourke, Sydney Trains and ourselves has been fantastic. This is one of the hardest builds. And what we're building here is, unlike all the other stations, this is being built top down. So basically doing the first slab, digging underneath it, doing the second slab and working our way down. And we're looking to break through into the running tunnels sometime before the end of the year. So they've done really well. And again, it's been very tricky. Anyone that's worked around Central Station, they do have records of Central Station. Some of them are actually accurate. But there's a lot of fines and interesting behaviour going on there. So that has proved to be quite challenging, but the team has done very well. I thought I'd show you this one. This was the roof. So one of the things I've been preaching is, from a construction point of view, I'd really like us to move away from, I call it, possession work is like pouring concrete in the rain with a torch on, because that's often what possession work is. And I think as an industry, we've got to try and get smarter. So one of the things we want to push is, what can we build off-site and bring and assemble? And this was one of the examples. We did the bridge at Central. This is another example, which is the roof. There's just some photographs. And basically, we built the roof off-site. And that was the idea, to bring the roof off-site. And then basically put it on lorry and assembled it. And at the end, we'll show you how the assembly went. But that's it going into place now. Again, it's these sort of L-shaped pieces are affectionately known as the hockey sticks. And they've gone in. And again, the idea was working with Sydney Trains. There's some fantastic sandstone buildings that have been cleaned up and really are, they're world class. And we wanted to complement with a really high spec design for the roof. And I think when people go into Central in the future, they'll be stunned by what we've created there. This is again some photographs. The other thing we're doing is we're putting a tunnel under all the suburban platforms. So this is called Central Walk. And what will happen when we finished is that you'll be able to go from any suburban platform down an escalator or a lift along this walkway and entering into the Sydney Metro. And we had all sorts of original ideas, but we've actually done it through a series of tunnels underneath. So we have the boxes on top of the platforms, but most of the work has been done from the bottom. This is the beginning of the Central Walkway. To give you an idea of dimensions, I think we've all been down Devonshire Street Tunnel. Devonshire Street Tunnel is about 5 metres. This will be 19. So it will be very spacious. It will be high. And what it will do is redimension how you use Central. So instead of going to the Rabbit Warren, if you want to get around, you go into the Central Walkway. We're doing the eastern section. We've allowed for the extension to go right the way across all the platforms 1 to 12. So we're doing the first bit across the suburbans. There's that, and then this will also extend all the way out to a new entrance next to the dental hospital. So in the future, if you're going to the rugby or the cricket and you get on the light rail, you better go straight down and find your train. Waterloo. Waterloo is very similar to Crow's Nest. It's a very large, deep box which we've created. And this has now been handed over to John Holland, who will be doing the station and oversight development. What we did do, though, is we took advantage of the fact that we'd finished early to do a lot of flash butt welding. So all the rail now for the line has actually been welded and dragged through into the tunnels. And that was one of the things we were able to achieve by getting in there early. So we did the machine we first of all did Waterloo and got the track all the way into the city. We then picked up the flash butt welder, not literally picked it up, but craned it up, and took it to Crow's Nest and did the same on the North Shore. So we're now in a situation where all our track has actually been welded into lengths. I think it's about 120 metre lengths, and it's all been dragged into the tunnel, ready for track laying to start, hopefully in the new year. Worth talking a little bit about power supply. This is the Canterbury to Campsie. Like all railways, we need lots of power. This is some of the work we're doing there. Again, difficult work in the neighbourhood, trying to keep the community happy. The team are about 80% through. And again, this has gone much better than we could have hoped. It's gone really well, and we're looking to get that completed. We've had the normal challenges with utilities. It doesn't matter how much research you do, there's always the odd find. But the good news is no bodies, nothing like that. So it's been a success story as far as that's concerned. I'll talk a little bit about the tunnel fit out. So this is being done by Linewide. And again, these are some of the photographs of the new rail that's going in. It comes in on a truck. We've flash butt welded it, and as you can see, it's literally now just being laid down the tunnel, and that's ready for the next stage of taking that track and turning it into track form. The team are ahead of schedule at the moment, and we're looking forward to them making real progress next year. I couldn't come to a PWI and not talk about track form. I'm just hoping you don't ask me too many difficult questions on it. We have 3 types of concrete track bed. We have conventional, which is direct fix. We have a high attenuation, which is basically where we're using it where we're either shallow or we think we have a particular problem. But we've also used some floating track slab form in our stations. And that was, part of that was whether we needed it or not was and ah, but it provided security for the overstation development. And standing here this evening, I think that was a really good investment. These are a couple of our drilling rigs. Again, one of the things we've learned is that when you fill out your station, you've got to drill lots of holes. Last time, I think it was done on Northwest, they had I call it Mark 1 of the machine, which was basically a rolling scaffold with people standing on it with hilties. This is a little bit more sophisticated, and these 2 machines will be used to actually do the drilling. I'll talk a little bit about the conversion of the Bankstown line. Bankstown line's about 120 years old. Very, very nice railway. Little bit curvy along the way, but nevertheless, it's got 10 stations. Currently, of those stations, there are 5 without lifts, and a number of them are desperately in need of upgrade. So the process we're going to be going through is upgrading all the stations. If the ones are in good shape. One of the things that came through was when we did our environmental impact assessment, what was very clear is that people didn't want us to rip apart the community. So we have made a real effort to retain as much of the heritage as we can. So that's been really important to us. And also making sure that we respect the heritage down there, and also how successful this line actually is. So Sydenham Junction Christmas close down. I think I've got this right. I think it's 40% of trains go through Sydenham Junction. It goes from 4 tracks on the city side to 6 tracks. And it basically has the Illawarra, East Hills and the Bankstown line. To separate out, so in other words, so we can separate Metro from the rest of the Sydney trains network, we had to re-signal that junction. Now, I'm not a signalling engineer, but when they explained to me how risky and how incredibly difficult it was, and the fact that we took out 40% and we had to put it back together again in about 5 days, this was a moment to cherish. I tell you, it was one I didn't take a Christmas holiday on. Not only were they very successful in that they managed to do all the track realignment, they put in the new signalling system and got it back on. They got the Illawarra back before New Year's Eve. Fantastic achievement. And again, I have to say, the consortium we had down there was Laing O'Rourke, John Holland, but I'd also add Sydney Trains. Sydney Trains were fantastic. They worked with us, they helped us with the busing, which as you can imagine was quite awkward, are really, really very, very successful. While we were there, this is great, it's like, while you're there, why don't you put in the new canopy? So that's what we did. While we were there, we had no trains, so we lifted in the new canopy. Again, the canopy came in parts, it was assembled on the street, and then we had a 500-ton crane that jacked it into place, again, through that long Christmas break. If you go there now, you'll see that since then we've actually extended it, and we've now got virtually the full canopies in place, except for a few staircases. And that canopy will serve both Sydenham Station and the new metro platforms. Again, it's PWI, got to show a track lane. So this is some of the work going on. The team at Sydenham did a great job in putting the track in. Again, I haven't seen that much mechanisation for track laying before, and then the number of machines and people they had there. I think they had over the Christmas break in excess of 300 or 400 people all in this area. It was incredible to watch, and they finished on time. The other thing that was really satisfying is no injuries, a really professional job. And as I said, we between the collective, we got the trains back and running for New Year's Eve, and then we got the whole thing back about 10 days later. So a really successful process. Always like to add a bit of Rome to my presentations. So we've done railways, we've done pipes underground, so why not do an aqueduct? So at Sydenham, for anyone that's been to Sydenham, you'll know that the drainage there can be somewhat interesting. And this, I'll just walk over here, this is really stuck up the cameras. This thing here is called Sigmund Pit. So Sydenham Pit is basically a retention basin, and it's heritage as well. Of course it is, why not? If you're going to build a pit, build an old pit. So it's a heritage pit. So we had this sort of conundrum. We couldn't make it deeper or bigger because you'd lose the heritage value. So what we've had to do is actually bring an aqueduct that takes the drainage water over the pit so it doesn't go into the pit and then back into the main drainage. So again, this is our little bit of Rome. There's no canals or anything else, but it's an aqueduct, and that has been fully installed now and is up and running. So again, a really successful part of the project. A little bit unusual, and it's kind of unusual in that you've got a pit there, but you're building this huge concrete structure to carry water over it so it doesn't go into it and flood it. So again, some really great engineering from there. Now this is one for the mechanical engineer, mechanical gap fillers. Okay, so one of the challenges on the Bankstown line, for anyone that's used Bankstown line, is that about 7 of the platforms on the Bankstown line have curves in them. And we looked at all sorts of alternatives. Can we make it straight? Can we do this? And in the end, we locked on to putting in mechanical gap fillers. For people that know me, I have a thing called a rule of 3, which says we shouldn't do anything unless it's been done at least 3 times around the world. We really struggled for a while. We found something I think it's in New York, can only be described as a drawbridge. It's just like, well, I guess that's one, but it wasn't particularly. And some trams had it in Europe. But we found they were using them in Japan, and they're rolling them out quite a lot because of the Japanese Olympics. And one of their commitments was they would make their public transport accessible. They also had a slight problem there in that they were losing small children down the gap as well, which was another good reason for doing this. So we found out that Japan had them. We also found out that a number of the lines in Korea had them. So I think you went, didn't you, Craig? I think so. You know, you get these great trips. I didn't go on this one, but Craig went, and our operations person, Emma Duncan, and Hugh, my project director, I sent them off to Japan and Korea in February. Geez, they did look cold, but they found this technology. And what was interesting is we were looking at all sorts of laser devices and, you know, how are we going to get this to work? And they'd been through that over there. And what they said is, just, you know where the train is, you know what the gap is, just make a very simple thing that goes in and out. Forget the complexities of lasers and God knows what else. So that was the solution. So our challenge is that we'll be putting these on. And the idea is that whether they are curved or straight platforms, they will have level access. And when I say level, just to give you an idea of what that means, it means that to meet the DDA standard, we must be within 12 mil on height and 40 mil on gap. So in other words, we've got to almost create like a lift, so people can just rock on and off, whether it's in a wheelchair, a pram, or whatever. But also what we're finding on the Northwest is that by having that level access, a lot of other people are finding it much easier, particularly people that have got maybe just slightly old or disabled or whatever. So this is not just for people with wheelchairs, it's for everyone. So I've got, this is the really good one. This is where I get to snap things down. So this is what we're doing. So we have platform screen doors. So again, these are on the Northwest. So we're going to retrofit platform screen doors on every one of the Bankstown stations. We were putting the sliding as close to the edge as we can get. So in other words, we're trying to minimise the gap, but where there's a curve, there is some gaps. We'll then add the mechanical gap fillers. And the idea of the mechanical gap filler is that we set it in at the base. What we're doing with the track, particularly on the curved platforms, is we'll be putting in concrete track bed. And we did look, and we think it could be done with ballast, but we think the concrete track bed gives us more surety on the distance. So in other words, we know where the train is, which is a really good thing to do, particularly when you've got a slide coming out. So we'll be installing those. And we'll also be putting in, because we've got this gap between the platform screen door and you know, there's a possibility, so there will be some detection system to make sure people don't get stuck in. If anyone's been to Paris, Line 1 has done something similar. They put platform screen on very curved platforms. They haven't put the platform, gap fillers in. And we had a really interesting conversation with them about how did they cope with a disability. And it was such a Parisian answer. We don't provide lifts. That was their answer. That solved the problem. So in other words, if people can't get down there, yeah. And also one of my colleagues found that because they're not lift doors, they've got quite a bit of pressure on them. He got stuck in one. And it literally said it was like being hit hard. There was none of this lift where they open up. So the Parisians set them up quite hard. And to make matters, I guess, insult to injury, after he sort of fell back, he gets abuse from the attendant that he shouldn't have put his head in anyhow. So there you go. I've got to love the Parisians. So what's next for Line Wide? Meet Florence. This is one of the machines we've showed. So Florence, I think you can see, it's almost like a Dalek. It goes along the tunnel, drilling holes. Again, that will start, and that will pre-drill all the holes. They'll follow up with the platforms, walkways in the tunnel, cable tray, that type of thing. But again, that will be Florence. And as I said, it's Mark II. The original one was a bit of scaffolding and people put in there. So this is a fully automated machine. So talk a little bit. I'm coming near the end now. So that's really the pretty pictures. So what are we doing with Metro West? Metro West is a 25 kilometre. Again, we're having to break it down into a number of packages. That's to meet the market expectations. So we will be having train signalling. We're having a line-wide stations, tunnel packages. Again, it's a bigger contract, and we've actually had to spread the contracts out to a few more. So slightly less than we've got for City and South West, but still around 11 packages that have to be brought together. Where we are at the moment on this project, we've started the tendering for the tunnel. So the first tunnel package is being tendered. And then shortly after that one, there will be the Western package, and then the Central package, and then following on will be a series of other contracts. Just to keep us really busy, we've also got the Western Sydney Airport. That is, anyone's been out there, that is really a greenfield railway. And what we're doing there is very similar to the Northwest, in that what we're doing is we're doing some enabling works where we're trying to put in roads and power. We have a station package, and the station package is one package, but there's two lots of, so station and tunnelling package. So there's two lots of tunnelling, north from St Mary's and also under the airport and out to Aerotropolis. And in the middle, we have a surface and civil alignment, which is SCORE. So this will be surface works and also some viaduct. And then to wrap the whole thing, there will be a contract called STOM, and that will be very similar to the OTS contract that we did on the Northwest, which will cover, please take the infrastructure and turn it into a railway, but that will cover stations, trains, and all the systems. So Where we are with this, our EOI has just come in for the station box and tunnelling package, so we're hoping to go out to tender early next year for that. The score package, expressions of interest have gone out, and then we'll be starting the procurement for STOM next year. So again, City and South West is really moving ahead, but there's a whole pile of packages to follow. Now we're going to try and do the video. I think we've decided that sound's not going to work, so I was going to hum, but I'll talk through a little bit. There you go. So this was just basically how the roof went together, coming in on trucks. Again, when they did the prototype, they made sure it all fitted together. This is my boss talking. He's saying some really nice things about me. What was really good, when they put it together, when they did the steel bridge down at Central, all you could hear was angle grinders and hammers. This one went together beautifully. They'd learnt the lesson, slots, pre-assemble it before. But really, really fantastic what they did and how they got it together. It went up really quickly. I think it went up in a matter of days. Again, from our point of view, what was good is that not only did they have the steel, they brought the roofing section already completed, so it was wired up. So we don't have people up there in cranes trying to wire it up. It's all pre-wired. The wires are left dangling at the end, and that all went up really, really well. There you go. We've got the night shot. I wasn't there for that one. That's John saying how good I'm doing as well. It's brilliant. Let's go. But I say it was quite interesting because obviously this went up over a weekend, and people came back the next Monday going, "Where's all this come from?" That was really quite interesting, and it was funny. We timed this to do with, we had this sandblasting of the Bradfield. That's a cricketer, isn't it? Thank you. So the Bradfield building was sandblasted, and so over a weekend it was all stripped back, so you can see this wonderful sandstone building. Then you suddenly got this contemporary steelwork going on in front of it, and that's the building. It's a really remarkably lovely building. It certainly didn't look like that before they put the sandstone on. But we think when it's finished, what's interesting is when we did the tender, we got some artist impressions. And often the artist impressions at time of tender are, some people call them artist impressions, other ones call them wishful thinking. But we actually think what we're seeing now, it's coming to life, and that's what it will actually look like. So we're really pleased. And I think, we've got some of those escalators in now, which has been great. The rest of the work is taking place. The other thing they've done at Central, which I should mention, is for the first time, I've only been in Australia for 20 years, I've seen good quality concrete. They've actually put in some fantastic formwork and pillars and things like that. As a mechanical engineer, to admire concrete is very unusual, but they've done a smashing job there. Really have, and it's really going to look really, really good. And some of the public art that they're proposing to do as well will be quite stunning. And again, these are the artistic shots. That's John giving me just the final well done, Tim. Thanks very much. Without you, what could we have done? There you go. Okay. Hopefully that kept you amused. Hopefully you're not going to ask me too many difficult questions now. I just try to use up as much time as I can, so you have no time for questions. So.
Thanks, Tim. That was an excellent presentation. We do have a few technical difficulties at the moment, so we can't actually get questions from the virtual audience. But there's a number of fairly intelligent people in the room that I'm sure have got a lot of questions. So I'll ask you guys I'll move the mic around. But, when I look at it, Tim, absolutely fascinating project and series of projects to make, what is a world-class metro for Sydney. You've sort of mentioned a number of different areas. Is there one area that sticks out of you as probably the most challenging? Is it the stations or the tunnelling?
I think our number one risk is interface and integration. How do we get all our contractors to work together for the good of the project? And that's the number one risk. So and we're having some really good conversations with industry, in that the only way you finish a railway is if everyone finishes the railway. And I think that's the conversation we're having. And there will be times where we'll be saying to the station contractor, can you stop working because we need to get the line wide in? So it's all really complex. I personally am very excited about the conversion of the Bankstown line. I think it's almost, that is really quite an interesting conversion. If we do that well, that will set us up, not just in Australia for the ability to convert railways, but around the world, because it is a very difficult thing to do. And it has been challenging because you're dealing with 120-year-old assets. You're trying to bring in a 21st century railway. So I think probably technically the brownfield conversion is really hard, but some of the stuff they've done is just remarkable. But moving forward, it will be about, can we get all our contractors to continue to pull together, work really well together, and help us finish the railway? Because we only need one contractor to fail and we're stuffed. Because for build a railway, you've got to build it. And also making sure that we finish it so we've got enough time to test and commission it and integrate it. Because again, often lots of people, they call it, the sexy building stuff, but it's the brains that run the railway. It's the signalling, it's the control systems. And those things are tricky, and you've got to give them time to be bedded in and tested.
It's got a good points there. The first one is your contracting strategy changed significantly? I think it has, from the early days of the Epping Chatswood line through to what we're doing now. Maybe we want to talk about that, and I'll come back and ask a few questions.
Look, the strategy has changed quite a bit. We've gone from big contracts to small contracts. Originally, we were going to let a single station package contract, but we couldn't find a market. And then we had the USP, which introduced the integrated station development. And the integrated station development concept, I think, is a world's first. There are certainly developments above stations, so that's not a world's first. What is a world's first is to build them together and have it delivered at the same time. And we think our first model was a bit rough. Second one was better. The third one, we're actually really comfortable now, and we've been really impressed with how the contractors and the developers have got on board, because railway is still a mystique. So I think the other one that proved, again, challenging was the conversion of the Bankstown line. We've tried different models. We've now broken up into a series of different contracts. And it's always easy in hindsight. So I wonder why we didn't do that in the first place, but we've worked our way through. So we're comfortable now. I think I heard someone speak the other day. I think there's always an idea to try and, as a client, to minimize your interfaces. What's really become really evident is that if you are the client or the owner, you've got to manage it. You can't, your contractors can help you, but unless you do a PPP that does everything, you're always there managing interfaces and that. And for that, we're having to build a very different relationship with our supply chain than I think anyone else has. And we're making a lot of effort to be nice and play nicely.
I was going to say something about the Sigmund Bankstown one, because I think in the early days, probably a lot of people thought whether that was the right way to go as far as conversion of existing line. I think what is interesting with that is the fact that, as you say, to get that right, it gives you the opportunity to parts of the assets of Sydney trains into Metro at a later date.
Yeah. I think the other thing about it is it's railway. And the answer is we're going to convert it and hopefully make it into a better railway. But the issue there is that we're trying to make sure people understand is that rail lasts for a long time. And this gives it a chance to get to that next overlay. And we know that Sydney Trains are working on their digital program. It is much easier, I think, in some ways to convert than to actually modernise a running railway. So I think there are, we've got benefits by doing this, and we are seeing real benefits from having a driverless railway. I mean, I think the biggest thing for us is we've had instances, our recovery time can be less than an hour. And I know, I'm looking at Rob Mason there. Recovery from a major incident in an hour is unheard of, with drivers scattered here, there and everywhere. So it's not just about the reliability of the railway, it's also about recovery, it's about resilience. So I think there's some really good opportunities there.
Questions from the floor? Thanks, Tim. That was a great presentation. Not about Limewide, but that WSA Metro, obviously, for the future, which isn't actually that far away.
No.
Obviously, for contracting models, less interfaces, obviously, with that PPP being in there. But obviously, from a funding point of view and the feds being amongst that, can you tell us about the complications that might provide, or those issues around governance, and will Sydney Metro lead that, or how's that going to look like?
So look, the feds have traditionally funded lots of road projects, and it's actually been a very good partnership. They provide money, take no risk, and the state deliver the road project, and we're looking at a very similar model. So it's around 50-50 between the contribution from the state and the feds. There's various governance bodies that I report to. So far, so good in that they want to know what we're doing, but they don't necessarily want to take any risk or necessarily drive any decisions. So I think we'll be okay. I think it's really good that we've broken the nexus of the Fed or the Commonwealth government investing in public transport. I think that is so important. I mean, it's every budget you'd look there and go, is there a railway project? Nah. They've finally worked out that actually, you know what, a lot of people use public transport, and maybe we should take some of our taxes and use it on that rather than a highway to nowhere. So I'm really excited by that, and we'll work with them very closely. And basically, I don't see it as being overly difficult. It will all be through the state, through Sydney Metro, and we will do our best to manage that. There may be just a few more people cutting ribbons as we go along.
Thanks, Tim. Is there anything on City and South West that you want to be applying to West or Western Sydney Airport?
So much. I think I'll give you one very quick lesson. One of the things we've said is that we provide this wonderful tunnel, and then we fill it with holes, and we go, well, maybe we should put the holes in first. So what we'll be doing for Western WSA is we'll be doing the holes as part of the lining. Actually have to go back and post-drill. The other thing we're doing is we're also looking at what are the advantages we can take account of now we have a driverless metro. So what can we do better? And again, I described the Northwest. Northwest is like a nice prototype. And for the M&E people in the room, you go around and everyone goes, I need a room this big. Now, what we're finding is that some rooms are a bit squeezy. Other rooms are going, my word, what did they think they were putting in? Because you've got a room this size, and you've got a black box in the corner. So we're beginning to look at how we can rationalise our stations. I think the other thing that we're really pushing our team on Western WSA is, I think it's fair to say the Northwest and the City and South West is going to be a really good top-of-the-range 20th century railway. Nothing, and that was the strategy. We didn't want to do anything that was too cutting edge. For West and WSA, this is the next generation. So we will be looking at 25 kVA line to reduce the number of that. We'll also be challenging our supply chain to make sure that builders give us something that does works. Do we need to have wire to every CCTV camera? Can we use a wireless system? There are things that we've been doing for years that we're going to go back and challenge now. We'll look at the types of trains and those type of things. So we have a fairly maturing knowledge bank, for want of a better word, where what we're doing with respect to our teams is that we're moving our team. So we're bringing people from City and South West onto the WSA team, onto the West team. And what we're seeing is, again, our industry partners are also giving us feedback, and we're beginning to open those conversations about, if you had the chance again, what would you do different? And City and South West picked up lots of benefits from the Northwest, and then they'll be passed on to the West and also on to the next one. I'm done for now. Food to arrive. That's good. Any more questions?
One of the first ones that come up is the Concourse station. In give us some insights into what the future that's a process.
Yeah, no, it's a really good question, and I wish I did. No, we're very much so. Transport has a strategic planning division, and we're very much part of that. If you like, the transport plan for Sydney, the transport plan for New South Wales, and that's the right thing to do. I think in the past we've become quite sectorised. The buses did their things, the trains did their things, and then taxis. God knows who did taxis. Transports now is looking at integrated plans, and so that 2056 plan is about thinking not only about where should the next links be, but also what should the planning be. So, you know, you had Greater Sydney Council, which looked at the 3-city strategy, and that's really what, when I talk about Western Sydney Airport, I sort of say tongue-in-cheek stage 1, but that's what it is. Because it needs to go north and connect up to the northwest. It needs to go south to connect up to Macarthur. Metro West, yes, it's going to go to Westmead, but ultimately it needs to go to the airport because that will become a new city, a big city. So whilst we don't have an influence, we're beginning to get a really good amount of data. So when people say we want to put a metro here, we've got to explain to them they're not the cheapest things in the world. But once you put them in, you will absolutely regenerate that area.
Thanks, Stephen. Any other questions from the floor? I think we might bring that to a close then.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tim, on behalf of PWI and the small group of people here this morning, or this afternoon, sorry.
Has it been that long?
Excellent presentation, Tim. I think what we all were expecting. Great that you did talk about Furway, which is excellent. But, so just on behalf of PWI, if you could all join with me in thanking Tim for his presentation. Apologies to our virtual audience for a few of the technical problems that we came on. It was just before we went live, so apologies for that. That's our last meeting for the year. Just reminding everyone that to have a safe Christmas and Happy New Year. Our next technical meeting will be in February, and we've also got our awards night on the 12th of February. So have a look on the PWI website for the dates that are coming up. And thank you and good night.